While I was wandering around the port, I was wondering these past 7 years we have been witnessing together in the Azur Lane story. While I was memorizing all those past few years, two small details I managed to find from all these research I actually have to point out. I picked a few members from my fleet to actually find more materials for this, and so I hurried back to my research laboratory and find the materials I need to discuss the small details we have to point out. And we have to go all the way to the Winter's Crown and Iris of Light and Dark events. Those are the events we have to actually discuss, because there is two small details in total we need to discuss from these. I don't know who is the writer of this story, of the Azur Lane lore, but I would like to point these details to the writer and then wonder, is there any possibility to ask, can we have more small events from these? Or do we ever have finishing touch, so we can actually know how these will end? Before we go to the full story, let me point out what I managed to find. First off is from Winter's Crown. It's basically at the start of the event. There, and the second is from Iris of Light and Dark, and is actually built in two moments. One is the Age force fighting against Dunkirk's force, and the second one is actually happening at the end of the event. Now, I am not gonna wait any longer, and let's go directly to these small details I want to really point out. So, let's start with a basic one, and that is Winter's Crown event in small details. This might end up being as historical analysis, and then try to figure out how this could end. Of course, there's theories how it could happen, and also I don't want to go speculations, but let's just go with the game theories, the legendary game theory. How could the story go forward? But we are now basically going 5 years back, all the way from the Winter's Crown. When a Belfast's group was transporting equipment to Aurora, who was receiving them? Belfast began to think of her older sister Edinburgh, who walked in the same in a cold weather, where the Belfast fleet is now after the transfer was done. The reason why this detail was brought up, I started thinking about the pieces in place. Edinburgh in history, returning, he began to carry Russian gold. What is looted from the Tsar regime? Question mark? The crew of Edinburgh didn't like the idea of taking gold aboard. But despite the bad mood, which was supposed to be transported to Great Britain, en route, convoy GB-11 was spotted by German reconnaissance plane. In the port of Norway, German destroyers began to make their departure. They had the Z7 Hermann Sherman, the type 1935 A-class type, Z24 and Z25 Narvik class, Z23 class, so to say. Edinburgh's fate was sealed by the submarine U-456, Type 7C submarine. With the last two torpedoes, it hit the stern of the ship and near the bridge. Fortunately, the Edinburgh class is designed differently compared to other town-class ships. This saved the ship engine room, putting it more at the stern, rather than in the middle or near the bow. The destroyer Forsyth and Forrester in a convoy approached to rescue the ship. Two Russian destroyers and mine clearance ships. Minesweepers, apology. Two minesweepers. Two Russian ships, destroyers, and minesweepers also approached to rescue him. U-456 rose to the surface to look at its handprints. Translation problems. And reported to headquarters, and the regulators of the destroyers were and the plans of the destroyers were changed and ordered to make cruiser clear. Also translation problems. What I meant to say here is destroyers were ordered to find the cruiser and finish it off. The Forester saw the U-boat and went after her. But after a small mistake and frozen sonar, the destroyer threw random depth charges. And with the luck of Sledgehammer, one hit above U-456 and broke the periscope. Two Russian destroyers are forced to return their home port because they are running out of fuel. Then perhaps not optimistic message arrived in Edinburgh. The heavy cruiser Admiral Scheer has been spotted departing from Trondheim, the second of 3 Deutschland-class pocket battleships or heavy cruisers. Later, 3 German large destroyers reached the target and began attacking. In the midst of the battle, the Z fleet and 2 Royal Navy destroyers fought each other, but the Germans did not properly consider the third fighter, Edinburgh itself. Although the rudder is missing and some propellers are absent, they made the B-turret behave in a strange way, using NDA radar to detect German fighters and giving fire instruction to work in turret as long as it can aim and turn to targets. Then the message arrives in Edinburgh. Apparently, Admiral Scheer reappeared in Trondheim harbor, meaning that Edinburgh will survive a few minutes longer. During the battle, Edinburgh hit Z7 Hermann Sherman. The first salvo gave off shrapnels and the second was hit, damaging the engine compartment and control system. Z7 began to stop and lowers the smokescreen in alarm. Well, that was badly translated, excuse me. Z7, losing her engines, was crawling to stop and in emergency dropped the smokescreen to hide herself from Edinburgh. Edinburgh is unable to make the Z7 clear because the stern is missing and metal pieces on the sides are turning the ship slowly to the port, making him out of range. Forrester and Forsyth fights with Z24 and Z25. Z25 hammers Forrester well. It lost part of its armaments and one engine room. Forsyth tries to draw the enemy's firepower into itself, protecting his sister. This was successful because Z24 and Z25 began firing at him and hitting him several times. The Royal Navy nevertheless fired back. Frustrated, Z24 launched the last torpedoes at the destroyers. These did not hit the desired target. The Germans were forced to retreat because Forsyth began to hit the Z25 and the ship slowly began to tilt. Both broke away from the fight and head towards Z7 to rescue him. Sherman, at his last moment, fired his last torpedoes, hoping to hit something. This German rescue operation was successful, although they were under fire from minesweepers and Royal Navy ships. In the end, the crew was rescued and the Z7 was scuttled. In the midst of the battle, 6-inch fire support was missing. The torpedo was supposed to hit the Forrester continued its journey and hit Edinburgh on the other side of the stern, farther aft, hitting the engine room. It stopped the last propeller and flooded the engine room. The minesweepers were called in to rescue the crew and passengers. It was decided to leave the gold. The crew has been rescued, but the crew of Edinburgh, wreck of Edinburgh, was left floating, resisting to sink. Resisting to sinking, excuse me. It's been a while I have done this. The British sank her with the Forrester's last torpedo. The ship split in half and sank. Well, that was awfully writing, excuse me, it's been a while I've done this. The Germans will not hear about the sinking of Edinburgh until U-456 returns to base with a broken periscope and reported everything he heard beneath the surface, and surfaced only after the situation had calmed down and looked at what was left. here's my opinion about all this. In my opinion, if this event were ever brought up, there would be apparently 3 new Ironblood members. Z7 Herman Sherman, U456, and Admiral Shear. With luck, 2 more Royal Navy destroyers, the Forester and Foresight. In Rankin, I don't know why it was translated by Rankin, this seems to happen before Scharnhorst's own fate. And this happened after the Bismarck's Black Cube incident. This was my own analysis about all the events in a smaller size. And all this actually theory started from Belfast remembering her sister Edinburgh, big sister, that was sailing the same cold weather with that gold and fighting against 3 German destroyers, only by getting hit again with a sheer bad luck torpedo hit. Of course, these days Edinburgh is safe, but we still have no idea what kind of event happened before Belfast began her own mission. Of course, let us not forget that Belfast was hit by German magnetic mine before the fate of Edinburgh actually happened. You could actually call this a perfect reenactment. Of course, Admiral Shear could actually give orders to destroyers in this entire mission. But let's go to the second one. The most odd one I have ever think about it. And probably the complex of all in entire lore. But we will get to that in a second video. In Iris of Light and Dark. This is all in chapter 10. John Bard has defeated by Massachusetts. Ranger informs message from Naval HQ that Ironblood carrier battle group is quickly approaching from the north. Prepare for battle. John Bard mentioned that it is not coming after them. This fleet where Massa and Ranger is. Now the Davies have still yet to see that Ironblood carrier battle group after this event. Maybe it's hard to place in this story timeline? Or what is the real meaning of this? Now at this point, I would like to propose something, introducing a new carrier in this oddly placed, random, not well planned movement. Europa-class auxiliary carrier for Ironblood. There's a real story behind this Europa-class aircraft carrier. She was originally ocean liner, long and wide enough to start planning to convert her into aircraft carrier. But the obstacles for this were not just the ship, how it was built, but also how much it would have cost for not just materials, but the planes themselves. If you are familiar with Luftwaffe, German aircrafts, that one person tend to be a very difficult piece of work. Hermann Göring, the one who was commanding all airplanes to provide the Kriegsmarine with sufficient aircraft and pilots. Other problem was her speed. Europa was ocean liner. She was fast and large, 50,000 gross ton, capable of speed about 27.5 knots. That's 15.9 kilometers per hour. With advanced high-speed steam turbine engines. Same goes with her sister, SS Bremen 9028. However, I repeat what I said. Europa to be converted into auxiliary aircraft carrier should have been faster and larger, but the design problems emerged as the drawing up of the conversion plan progressed. Sometime later, these problems had proved impossible to rectify, so the project was abandoned. These ideas appeared after the loss of Bismarck in 1941 and near torpedoing Tirpitz in 1942. German Navy wanted aircraft carriers, but these plans never came to reality, only in papers. In the story, Ironblood attacks the Irish Orthodoxy on land, and this is the Hood who was in command in H Fleet during this operation reenactment to try and stop Ironblood to take over Irish fleet. Of course, the result was not positive, and 2 years after that, it was Vichy Dominion's turn and the fate of John Bart. Until this time, Ironblood makes that battle carrier group to move. Maybe something happened during those 2 years? That's all I wanted to write down. Now, the last part. In story, Ironblood attacks the Irish Orthodoxy on land. And this is the time when Dunkirk gets sunk by H Fleet strength and some 4 other ships. And 2 years after that incident, where Massachusetts and Ranger are working together with the Royal Navy fleet, was it Repulse and Cleveland there, hoping to take down the remaining fleet of Vichy Dominion and John Bart. And during this confrontation, Ironblood's aircraft battle group makes a move. What is this battle carrier group? Even I don't know yet at this time. But this is one of those important moments we need to know what happened. Is this some kind of trying to break from the reenactments, but still waging war against the Azur Lane? Or is this some kind of random drop to actually divert something from the other? But perhaps this is a good opportunity to go back in time again and then release this auxiliary aircraft carrier Europa that was planned but never managed to complete. We basically do not know. I would personally love to ask the writer of the story about these 2 small details. Ironblood carrier group and the fate of Edinburgh in Atlantic Ocean. this is all I now wanted to bring up. What is your opinion about all these stories about this far? Are you enjoying it this far? Because I am. And I would love to see something more answers to the past events. But as I mentioned, Hood was fighting against Irish Orthodoxy fleet that was slowly turning into Vichya Dominion. 2 years after that, it was now Repulse, Cleveland, Massachusetts, and Ranger. Now then, we have now come to the end of this video. It has been gone surprisingly long. What is your opinions about these events? Leave comments down below. I will then close enough to actually start piecing all together to my ultimate Iron Blood lore investigation video. Story investigation. And then we will see how far Iron Blood has truly grown or reached. How far the Iron Blood has truly become. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you happy days, happy weekends, and I see you in the next one. God, I'm so bad with endings, help! Okay, see you later.